I stared at the screen, my blood turning into ice, realizing that the detailed, filthy text describing exactly what I wanted my boss to do to me hadn't gone to my best friend. It had gone to him. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you love intense BL stories, arrogant CEOs, and secret office romances that will make your heart race, you are in the right place. Today, we are starting a brand new series that is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. Before we jump into the story, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment Team CEO if you're ready for the drama. Now, let's get into the story. Part 1. The Mistake. The elevator doors at Sterling and Company slid open with a soft ding, revealing the pristine, terrifying silence of the executive floor. I adjusted my tie for the 10th time, catching my reflection in the polished steel doors. I looked like a nervous wreck. My name is Julian, a 24-year-old junior analyst who had spent the last 6 months trying to survive the shark tank that was this company. And the biggest shark of them all, Adrian Sterling, the CEO. Adrian wasn't just a boss. He was a force of nature. 32, 6'3", with eyes like frozen sapphires and a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. He was a genius, a billionaire, and undeniably the most attractive man I had ever seen. He was also completely, utterly terrifying. He didn't just fire people. He dismantled their confidence with a single raised eyebrow. And I was currently 5 minutes late to deliver his coffee. I rushed toward the massive double doors at the end of the hall, my heart hammering against my ribs. Please don't be there. Please be in a meeting. Please be on a call. I knocked once and pushed the door open. Mr. Sterling, I have your... The words died in my throat. Adrian was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the rainy New York skyline. He didn't turn around. He didn't need to. The air in the room instantly grew heavier, charged with his presence. You're late, Julian, he said. His voice was a low baritone, smooth as velvet but cold as ice. The elevator was stuck, sir. I apologize, I stammered, placing the coffee on his glass desk with a trembling hand. Adrian finally turned. He was wearing a charcoal three-piece suit that fit him like a second skin, accentuating the broad expanse of his shoulders. He walked toward me, his movements predatory, like a panther circling its prey. He stopped right in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, sandalwood rain, and something expensive and dangerous. Excuses are for people who accept mediocrity, he said softly, his blue eyes boring into mine. Are you mediocre, Julian? No, sir, I whispered, unable to look away. Then prove it. Redo the quarterly analysis reports. All of them. I want them on my desk by tomorrow morning. My jaw dropped. But sir, that's hundreds of pages. It took the team a week to compile that. Then you better start now, he said, dismissing me with a wave of his hand as he sat back down in his leather chair. Close the door on your way out. I walked out of his office, my face burning with a mixture of humiliation and anger. But beneath the anger, there was that other feeling. That stupid, traitorous spark of heat that flared up every time he looked at me with those cold eyes. I hated him. I hated how he made me feel small. And God help me, I wanted him to look at me again. By 10 p.m., the office was a ghost town. The cleaning crew was vacuuming the hallway, and the only light came from my dual monitors. My eyes burned, and my fingers ached from typing. I had been fueled by nothing but vending machine coffee and pure spite for the last 12 hours. Stupid Adrian. Stupid perfect suit. Stupid beautiful face. I muttered to myself, aggressively typing numbers into Excel. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Leo, my best friend and roommate. Leo, dude, are you alive? It's Friday night. We're at the bar. Come save me from this blind date. I groaned, leaning back in my chair. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The exhaustion lowered my inhibitions. The frustration of the day, the months of pining over a man who treated me like furniture, it all bubbled up. I needed to vent. I needed to let it out. I started typing. I can't. The devil himself has me redoing the entire quarterly report because I was 5 minutes late with his coffee. I swear, Leo, I hate him. I hate him so much. I paused. That wasn't enough. I took a sip of my cold coffee and let my thumbs fly, the filter between my brain and my fingers completely dissolving. But you want to know the worst part? When he was standing there, looking at me like I was dirt, all I could think about was dropping to my knees and begging him to ruin me. It's sick. He's a tyrant, but God, he's so hot it makes me angry. I just want him to pin me against that glass window in his office and show me exactly why he's the boss. I want to wipe that arrogant look off his face, or kiss it off. I think I'm losing my mind. I read it over. It was filthy. It was pathetic. It was exactly what I needed to say to someone to get it out of my system, so I could go back to being a professional robot. I hit send. I threw the phone down and rubbed my face, letting out a long sigh. There. Said it. Now back to work. Buzz. My phone vibrated against the desk almost immediately. Leo was a fast reader. I picked it up, expecting a laughing emoji or a "you need Jesus" text. But the screen didn't say Leo. The message at the top of the chat thread wasn't from Leo. The name at the top of the screen read, Adrian Sterling, CEO. The world stopped. Literally stopped. The hum of the air conditioner, the distant traffic, the sound of my own heartbeat, everything went silent. I stared at the phone. I blinked, sure that I was hallucinating from sleep deprivation. But the name didn't change. The gray bubble with my long, explicit confession of hate lust was sitting right there, delivered to Adrian Sterling. No, I whispered. No, 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 no. I scrambled to delete it. My fingers fumbled, tapping the screen frantically. Delete for everyone. Delete for everyone. Read 10:04 p.m. The little read, receipt appeared just as my thumb hovered over the delete button. He had seen it. My stomach dropped out of my body. Bile rose in my throat. I had just sent a text to the CEO of a billion-dollar company, my boss, telling him I wanted him to pin me against a window and ruin me. I was fired. I was absolutely fired. I would be blacklisted from every industry in the city. I might as well pack my box and move to a cave in Antarctica. Panic clawed at my throat. I stood up, grabbing my bag. I have to run. I have to leave the country. Buzz. The phone vibrated in my hand. I almost dropped it. I didn't want to look. I wanted to throw the phone out the window, but my eyes were glued to the screen. Adrian Sterling, CEO, come to my office. Now. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a "you're fired" email. It was a command. Come to my office. He was still here. At 10 p.m. on a Friday, my legs felt like jelly. Every instinct in my body told me to run to the elevator and never look back. But if I ran, it was an admission of guilt. If I went, maybe I could explain. Say my phone was hacked. Say it was a drunk prank. No, there was no explaining this away. I walked toward the executive wing like a man walking to the gallows. The hallway seemed longer than usual, the shadows stretching out to grab me. My heart was thumping so loud I was sure he could hear it from inside. I reached the double doors. They were slightly ajar. I pushed one open and stepped inside. The office was dim, lit only by the city lights drifting in from the massive window and a single lamp on his desk. Adrian was sitting there. He wasn't looking at his computer. He wasn't looking at paperwork. He was looking at his phone. Slowly, he placed the device face down on the desk and looked up. The shadows hid his eyes, but I could feel the weight of his gaze. It felt like a physical touch, heavy and hot. "Close the door, Julian," he said. His voice was dangerously calm. I turned and clicked the door shut. The sound echoed in the silent room. "Come here." I walked forward, my legs trembling. I stopped in front of the desk, gripping the strap of my bag like a lifeline. "Sir, I can explain. That message, it wasn't. I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to send it to me?" Adrian asked, leaning back in his chair. The light caught his face now, revealing a strange expression. It wasn't anger. It wasn't disgust. It was hunger. "No, sir. It was a mistake. I was venting to a friend, and it was a joke, a tasteless, inappropriate joke, and I am so incredibly sorry. I'll pack my things. I'll send my resignation letter tonight." "Is that what you want?" he asked quietly. "To resign. I assume I'm fired, sir." Adrian stood up. He moved around the desk, slow and deliberate. I instinctively took a step back, my back hitting the closed door. He didn't stop until he was standing inches from me, towering over my frame. The heat coming off him was intoxicating. "You said you wanted to punch me," he murmured, his voice dropping an octave, "and that you wanted to kiss me." I swallowed hard, looking at his tie because I couldn't bear to meet his eyes. I was angry. I didn't mean it. "And the part about the window?" he whispered, tilting his head. "Did you mean that?" My breath hitched. "Sir, look at me." It wasn't a request. I lifted my head. His blue eyes were dark, the pupils blown wide. He looked at me not as an employee, but as something he wanted to devour. "I've been waiting for you to crack, Julian," Adrian said, his hand coming up to rest on the wall beside my head, boxing me in. "You're so perfect, so polite, so terrified. But I saw the way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't noticing. I don't look at you. I lied, my voice shaking. Liar, he breathed. He stepped closer, his body pressing lightly against mine. You look at me like you hate me. And now I know exactly what that hate tastes like. He leaned down, his lips brushing against the shell of my ear, sending a shiver down my spine that made my knees buckle. You sent that text to the wrong number, Julian. But you got the right response. He pulled back just enough to look me in the eye. You said you wanted me to ruin you, he said, his hand sliding down to grip my hip, his thumb pressing into the bone. Be careful what you wish for. Because now that I know you want it, I'm not going to let you leave this office until I'm done with you. The air in the room vanished. The tension snapped. So, Adrian whispered, his lips hovering millimeters from mine, are you going to run? Or are you going to show me if you can take what you asked for? End of part 1. Part 2, the assessment. The silence in the office was deafening. It wasn't the empty silence of a deserted building. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a predator assessing its prey. Adrian's hand was still resting on the door beside my head, effectively trapping me. His other hand, the one that had been on my hip, slowly traveled up my side, his fingers burning through the thin fabric of my dress shirt. My heart was beating so violently against my ribs, I was sure he could feel it. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could process was the overwhelming scent of him, sandalwood, crisp rain, and pure, unadulterated power, and the fact that the man who held my career in his hands had just admitted he wanted to ruin me. Well, Adrian whispered, his voice vibrating in the small space between us. You had plenty to say in your text, Julian. You were very descriptive about what you wanted me to do to you. Don't go silent on me now. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Sir, I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. You don't smell like alcohol, he noted, leaning in closer, his nose grazing the line of my jaw. I shivered involuntarily. You smell like cheap coffee and fear. Mostly fear. I am afraid, I admitted, my voice trembling. You're my boss. I just sexually harassed you via text message. I should be fired. I should be walking out of this building right now with a box of my things. Adrian pulled back slightly, just enough to look me in the eyes again. His expression was unreadable, a mask of cold calculation that made my stomach turn. Is that what you think this is? Harassment, isn't it? Harassment implies it was unwanted, he said smoothly. The air left my lungs. What? I told you, Julian. I've been watching you. He stepped back, finally giving me room to breathe, though the loss of his body heat left me feeling suddenly cold. He walked back to his desk, sitting on the edge of it, crossing his long legs at the ankles. He looked completely at ease, while I felt like I was vibrating out of my skin. Watching me, I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Why? I'm just a junior analyst. I bring you coffee and fix spreadsheets. You're the only person in this entire building who doesn't look at me like I'm a god or a monster, Adrian said, picking up his phone, my phone, I realized with a jolt, and tapping the screen. You look at me with frustration, with annoyance. I see you rolling your eyes when I turn my back in meetings. I hear the way you sigh when I give you impossible deadlines. He looked up, a dark smirk playing on his lips. I like it. It's refreshing. And now, he held up the phone, displaying the text message I had sent. Now I know that underneath that professional, prickly exterior, you're just as obsessed with me as I am with you. I'm not obsessed, I lied, though my face felt like it was on fire. I want him to pin me against that glass window in his office and show me exactly why he's the boss, Adrian read aloud. His voice was calm, almost bored, which made the dirty words sound even more illicit. Please stop, I begged, covering my face with my hands. I want to wipe that arrogant look off his face, or kiss it off. He paused. Which is it, Julian? Do you want to hit me, or kiss me? I dropped my hands, anger suddenly flaring up through the embarrassment. He was mocking me. He was enjoying this. Does it matter? You're going to fire me anyway. Just get it over with. Adrian set the phone down. His playful demeanor vanished instantly, replaced by the icy CEO persona that terrified everyone in the industry. Sit down, he commanded. I blinked. What? Sit. Down. He pointed to the leather chair opposite his desk. My legs moved on autopilot. I sat, gripping the armrests until my knuckles turned white. I'm not going to fire you, Julian, Adrian said, walking around the desk to sit in his massive executive chair. Firing you would be a waste of resources. You're brilliant with data, even if your time management skills are lacking. And, he leaned forward, clasping his hands on the desk. I don't like losing things that belong to me. I don't belong to you, I snapped. You work for my company. You are on my payroll. And now, you have handed me the perfect leverage to ensure you do exactly what I want. Leverage. I felt sick. Are you blackmailing me? Call it an arrangement, he corrected. You sent a highly inappropriate message to the CEO. If I were to forward this to HR, not only would you be fired, but I could ensure you never work in finance in this city again. Gross misconduct. Sexual harassment. It would be a permanent stain on your record. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. I had worked so hard to get here. My student loans, my rent, my future. Everything was crumbling because of one stupid, horny moment of weakness. But, Adrian continued, his voice softening dangerously, I am a benevolent man. I'm willing to overlook this, lapse in judgment, on one condition. I looked at him, wary. What condition? You said you wanted to know why I'm the boss, he said, his eyes darkening. You said you wanted to be ruined. So, I'm going to give you a trial period. A trial period for what? To see if you can handle being mine. I stared at him. Yours? You mean like a boyfriend? Adrian laughed, a harsh, barking sound. No, Julian. Not a boyfriend. I don't do dinner dates and movie nights. I mean mine. You do what I say when I say it. In the office and out of it. You anticipate my needs before I even know I have them. You work harder than anyone else. And in exchange, I don't destroy your career. In fact, if you please me, I'll make your career. That's insane, I whispered. That's sexual harassment. You're harassing me now. I haven't asked you for sex, Adrian pointed out calmly. I'm asking for obedience. Total, absolute dedication to your job and your CEO. Unless, he tilted his head. Unless you want it to be sexual? Your text certainly implied you did. I opened my mouth, then closed it. The trap was perfect. If I agreed, I was his puppet. If I refused, I was fired and blacklisted. And the worst part, the sick, twisted part of my brain was screaming yes. I have the quarterly reports to finish, I said, my voice hollow. Adrian smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf that had just caught the rabbit. Excellent, he said. The files are on the server. You can use the workstation in the corner. I have some emails to catch up on. You want me to work here? I asked, looking at the small desk in the corner of his massive office. I want to keep an eye on you, he replied, turning his attention to his computer screens. Get to work, Julian. It's going to be a long night. The next 3 hours were torture. I sat at the small corner desk, typing furiously, trying to make sense of the complex data sets for the quarterly report. But my focus was shattered. Every few minutes, I would feel the weight of his gaze on me. Sometimes, when I looked up, he would be watching me. He wouldn't look away. He would just stare, intense and unblinking, until I was forced to look down at my keyboard, my face burning. Other times, he would ignore me completely, talking on the phone in rapid-fire French or typing aggressive emails. Watching him work was distracting. He was competent, ruthlessly efficient. He commanded the space around him effortlessly. It was attractive, disgustingly attractive. Around 1 a.m., my stomach growled. Loudly. The sound echoed in the quiet office. I froze, mortified. Hungry? Adrian asked without looking up. I'm fine, sir. Don't lie to me, Julian. Rule number 1. He stood up and walked over to a sleek cabinet built into the wall. He opened it, revealing a hidden mini-fridge and bar. He pulled out a bottle of sparkling water and a container of something that looked expensive. He walked over to my desk and placed them down. Sushi. High-end, probably costing more than my weekly grocery budget. Eat, he commanded. I can't take your food, sir. Eat it. I hesitated, then opened the box. I was starving. I took a piece of tuna roll and popped it into my mouth. It melted on my tongue. Good, he asked, leaning against the edge of my desk, crossing his arms. Yes. Thank you. You're making progress on the report, he observed, looking at my screen. I'm about halfway through. The data from the marketing department was formatted incorrectly. That's why the original report was flawed. I know, Adrian said. I stopped chewing. You knew. I knew the marketing team messed up. I wanted to see if you would catch it, or if you would just blindly copy-paste the numbers like the last analyst did. So, this was a test? Everything is a test, Julian. You're passing. So far. He reached out, his hand hovering near my face. I flinched, expecting. I didn't know what I expected. A blow. A caress? He brushed a crumb from the corner of my mouth with his thumb. The touch was electric. His skin was warm, his thumb rough against my lip. He didn't pull away immediately. He let his thumb linger there, pressing slightly against my lower lip, pulling it down just a fraction. My breath hitched. I looked up at him, my eyes wide. "You have a very expressive mouth," he murmured, his eyes fixated on my lips. "It says so many polite things, but writes such dirty ones." "Adrian," I breathed. I didn't mean to use his first name. It just slipped out. His eyes snapped to mine. "Sir," he corrected sharply. "Sir," I whispered quickly. "Finish the section you're working on. Then we're leaving." "Leaving? But I'm not done. It's 1:30 in the morning. Even I need sleep occasionally. And I'm not leaving you here alone with sensitive company data. I can take the bus home," I said, reaching for my bag. "At this hour? Don't be ridiculous. I'm driving you. That's not necessary. Do not argue with me." He straightened up, the moment of intimacy gone as quickly as it had come. "Pack up. 5 minutes." The ride down in the elevator was silent. The ride to the parking garage was silent. When we reached his car, a sleek black sports car that looked like the Batmobile, he unlocked the passenger door for me. I slid into the leather seat, the interior smelling exactly like him. He got in, started the engine, it purred like a beast, and peeled out of the garage. "Where do you live?" he asked. I gave him my address. It was in a part of the city that people like Adrian Sterling only saw on the news. He didn't comment, just navigated the empty streets with expert precision. As we drove, the city lights blurred past us. I felt a strange sense of unreality. I was in the CEO's car. He had blackmailed me. He had fed me sushi. He had touched my lip. "Why me?" I asked, breaking the silence. I couldn't help it. "You could have anyone. You're you." Adrian glanced at me, his hand shifting on the gear stick. "I told you. You challenged me. That's it? Because I rolled my eyes at you." "Because you see me," he said, his voice quieter now. "Everyone else sees the money. Or the title. Or they're terrified of the reputation. You, in that text, you didn't talk about my money. You talked about me. My arrogance. My face. You wanted a reaction from me, not the CEO." He pulled up to the curb in front of my crumbling apartment building. It looked even shabbier next to his pristine car. "We have a lot of work to do, Julian," he said, keeping the engine running. "The report needs to be finished by Monday morning." "I'll come in tomorrow," I said, reaching for the door handle. "I mean today. Saturday." "No," Adrian said. The locks clicked. I couldn't open the door. I turned to him, panic rising again. "What?" "The office is closed on weekends for maintenance. The HVAC system is being overhauled. You can't work there. Then, I'll work from home. I can remote in. And risk a security breach on your unsecured home Wi-Fi? Absolutely not. Then how am I supposed to finish it?" Adrian turned in his seat to face me fully. The street lamp outside cast half his face in shadow, making him look dangerous and beautiful. "My place," he said. "You're your house. My penthouse. It has a secure server connection. And plenty of space." "Sir, I don't think that's a good idea. I didn't ask for your opinion. I need that report. You need your job. And frankly, I don't trust you out of my sight right now." He leaned across the console. He was so close I could feel the heat radiating off him. "Be ready at 9 a.m. I'll pick you up. But 9 a.m., Julian. Don't make me wait. You know I punish lateness." He hit the unlock button. I scrambled out of the car, my heart pounding in my ears. I slammed the door and watched as he sped away, the taillights disappearing into the night. I stood on the sidewalk, shivering in the cold night air. I was going to his house. I was going to be alone with him, in his territory, for the entire weekend. I looked down at my phone. The text thread was still open. "Adrian Sterling, CEO, sleep well, Julian. You'll need your energy." I stared at the screen, a mix of dread and anticipation pooling low in my stomach. I had asked to be ruined. And come tomorrow morning, I had a feeling Adrian Sterling was going to start keeping his promise. End of part 2. Part 3, the penthouse. Sleep was a joke. A cruel, impossible joke. I spent the few remaining hours of Friday night staring at the cracked ceiling of my bedroom, my body vibrating with a toxic cocktail of adrenaline, exhaustion, and terror. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Adrian's face in the dim light of his car, heard his voice promising that I needed my energy. Energy for what? By 7 a.m. on Saturday, I had given up on sleep entirely. I was standing in front of my open closet, experiencing a full-blown existential crisis over what to wear. What is the appropriate attire for going to your billionaire CEO's penthouse to finish a report because you accidentally sexted him and now he owns your soul? Business casual? Smart casual? Just a sign around my neck that said, "Please don't fire me"? I settled on dark jeans and the nicest sweater I owned, a charcoal gray cashmere blend I'd bought on sale 3 years ago that made me feel slightly less like an imposter in the corporate world. It felt like armor. Flimsy, cheap armor against a nuclear weapon. I was in the kitchen, staring blankly at a lukewarm cup of coffee, when Leo stumbled out of his room, hair sticking up in every direction. "Dude," Leo mumbled, squinting at me against the morning light. "It's Saturday. Why are you dressed like you're going to a parent-teacher conference? And why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" I gripped the mug tighter. "Work emergency. I have to go in." Leo paused mid-yawn, his eyes narrowing. He knew me too well. He knew my I'm lying face. "Bullshit. The office is closed this weekend for HVAC repairs. You told me that yesterday when you were complaining about the noise." My stomach plummeted. I had forgotten I told him that. Plans changed. "It's an off-site meeting." "Off-site? With who?" "That tyrant Sterling." Leo leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "Jules, spill it. You were weird last text. You sent that text about hating him, then you went radio silent for hours. What happened?" I couldn't tell him. If I told Leo the first had accidentally sent the other text, the dirty one, to Adrian Sterling, he would die of laughter right here in the kitchen. Or worse, he'd try to fix it. "Nothing happened," I lied, my voice tight. "The quarterly report is messed up. It's a disaster. If I don't fix it by Monday, heads are going to roll, and mine is first on the chopping block. I just have to meet him to get the data." Leo studied me for a long, uncomfortable moment. "You're shaking." "I've had too much coffee." "You hate coffee." He sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "Look, if Sterling is being, if he's crossing a line." "He's not," I said quickly. Too quickly. "It's just work, Leo. Seriously. I have to go." I practically fled the apartment before he could ask any more questions. At 8:58 a.m., a sleek, matte black sedan that cost more than my entire college education pulled up to the curb. It wasn't the sports car from last night. This one was bigger, heavier, more imposing. A town car, but one that looked like it was built to survive an apocalypse. The back window rolled down smoothly. Adrian didn't say anything. He just looked at me. If I thought he was intimidating in a suit, Adrian Sterling in casual clothes was devastating. He was wearing dark, tailored trousers and a black knit sweater that clung to his shoulders and arms in a way that should be illegal. His hair was slightly less perfectly styled, a little looser, making him look younger, dangerous, and obscenely attractive. I opened the back door and slid onto the plush leather seat. It felt like entering a vacuum. The outside world, the noise of the city, the crisp morning air, was instantly replaced by the scent of expensive leather and his distinct, intoxicating cologne. "Morning, Julian," he said. He didn't look up from the tablet he was holding. "Good morning, sir." "Sir," he repeated, a hint of amusement in his tone as the driver pulled away from the curb. "We're outside the office. You can drop the formality. For now." I didn't know what to call him then. Adrian felt too intimate, too dangerous after the events of last night. So I said nothing. I just stared out the tinted window, watching the city blur past as we headed toward the wealthiest district. The silence in the car was thick, heavy with unspoken things. Every time he shifted on the seat, every time his finger tapped against the tablet screen, my muscles tensed. I was painfully aware of how close he was, how the dark sweater highlighted the sharp line of his jaw. I hated that I noticed. I hated that even now, terrified for my job and my dignity, part of my brain was replaying the way his thumb had felt against my lip last night. We pulled into the underground garage of a glass and steel tower that soared so high it seemed to scrape the sky. The garage itself was cleaner than my apartment, filled with cars that belonged on magazine covers. The driver opened the door for me. I stepped out, my legs feeling unsteady. "This way," Adrian said, walking toward a private elevator bank. He didn't look back to see if I was following. He knew I would. He pressed his palm against a biometric scanner beside the elevator doors. The metal panel beeped, and the doors slid open instantly. There were no buttons inside, just a smooth panel of brushed steel. "Penthouse," Adrian said clearly. The elevator began to ascend, smooth and silent. My ears popped as we rose higher and higher. The ride felt interminable. I was trapped in a small metal box with the man who knew my darkest, most embarrassing secret. "You're quiet this morning," Adrian observed, breaking the silence. He wasn't looking at me. He was watching the floor numbers tick upwards on a digital display. "I'm just focused on the report," I managed to say. He finally turned his head, those frozen sapphire eyes pinning me to the wall. "Are you?" Because you look like you're waiting for a trapdoor to open beneath your feet. Isn't that what this is? I whispered. A trap. A small, genuine smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. If it were a trap, Julian, you wouldn't have seen it coming until it was too late. This is an opportunity. The elevator doors pinged softly and slid open. I stepped out directly into his apartment, and my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a home. It was a museum curated by a minimalist sociopath with impeccable taste. The entire space was open concept, dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic, vertiginous view of the entire city. The floors were polished gray concrete, softened by massive plush cream rugs. The furniture was sparse, low-profile, and looked incredibly uncomfortable and expensive, lots of chrome, black leather, and sharp angles. There were no personal photos, no clutter, no knickknacks. It was cold, pristine, and massive. It smelled faintly of cedar and cold air. It was exactly the kind of place Adrian Sterling would live. Shoes, Adrian said, slipping off his loafers by the door. I quickly kicked off my sneakers, feeling ridiculous in my socks on the cold concrete floor. Coffee? He asked, walking toward a kitchen that was bigger than my entire apartment. It looked like a laboratory, all stainless steel surfaces and appliances hidden behind handleless cabinetry. Please. Black. I needed the caffeine to jumpstart my brain, which had apparently flatlined upon entering this space. I stood awkwardly in the middle of the vast living area, afraid to touch anything. I felt like a smudge of dirt on a perfectly clean lens. This world, this level of wealth and control, was alien to me, and I was currently held hostage in it. Adrian moved around the kitchen with the same efficient grace he moved through the office. He returned a moment later with 2 matte black mugs. He handed one to me. Our fingers brushed during the exchange. The jolt of electricity that shot up my arm was so strong I almost dropped the mug. I jerked back, sloshing hot coffee onto my hand. Ah, damn it! I hissed, instinctively shaking my hand. A few dark drops landed on the pristine cream rug. Horror washed over me. I stared at the small dark spots on the expensive fabric. I had been in his house for less than 5 minutes, and I had already ruined something. I am so sorry. I panicked, looking around frantically for a paper towel, a napkin, anything. I'm so sorry, sir. I'll clean it up. Just tell me where. Julian. His voice was sharp, cutting through my panic. I'm so clumsy. I didn't mean to. I'll pay for the cleaning. Stop. Adrian stepped closer, taking the mug from my shaking hand and setting it on a nearby glass table with a solid clink. He grabbed my wrist, his grip firm but not painful, holding my burned hand up for inspection. His skin was cool against my inflamed flesh. He examined the red skin where the coffee had scalded me, his expression clinical. It's not bad. Just redness, he murmured. He didn't let go. He led me, dragged me really, as I was too stunned to walk properly, back into the kitchen. He turned on the faucet, letting the water run until it was icy cold, then thrust my hand under the stream. Better? He asked, standing right behind me. He was so close his chest was brushing against my back. I was trapped between the cold granite counter and the wall of heat that was Adrian Sterling. Yes. Thank you, I whispered, unable to turn around. He turned off the water and reached for a towel, gently patting my hand dry. The action was surprisingly domestic, shockingly gentle coming from a man who had threatened to ruin my life less than 12 hours ago. You need to calm down, Julian, he said, his voice low near my ear. You're vibrating with anxiety. You're going to make mistakes if you're this tense. I can't help it, I admitted, staring at my red hand in his. Being here with you, knowing what you know. Adrian turned me around slowly, so my back was against the counter. He stepped into my personal space, placing a hand on the granite on either side of my hips, caging me in. My breath hitched. This was it. The text message come to life. What is it that you think I'm going to do to you? He asked softly, his eyes searching mine. I don't know, I breathed. Fire me. Blackmail me more. Or. He tilted his head, a lock of dark hair falling over his forehead. Or do what I wrote in that text. The silence stretched taut. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back up to my eyes. The air between us crackled. If I did that, Adrian murmured, leaning in so close I could feel his breath on my lips, we wouldn't get any work done today. And I need that report, Julian. He pulled back abruptly, the loss of his proximity making me stagger slightly. Come on, he said, his tone all business again, as if the last minute hadn't happened. My study is this way. I've set up a workstation for you. I watched him walk away, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. He was playing with me. He was enjoying reeling me in and pushing me away, keeping me constantly off balance. And God help me, it was working. I followed him down a wide hallway. He opened a set of double doors, revealing a massive home office. It was dominated by a huge, dark wood desk and a wall of built-in bookshelves filled with leather-bound books. On a smaller, separate desk near the window, a state-of-the-art laptop was set up, connected to two large monitors. "The server is accessed through here," Adrian said, gesturing to the setup. "All the files are loaded. You have until tomorrow evening to rebuild the report from the raw data." "Tomorrow evening?" I asked, looking at the mountain of digital work waiting for me. "That's impossible." "I don't do impossible, Julian, and neither do you anymore." He walked over to his own massive desk and sat down, opening his own laptop. "I have international calls to make all morning. I expect you to be silent and productive. If you need anything, water, coffee, the bathroom, you ask permission first." My jaw dropped. "Permission to use the bathroom?" He looked up, his face dead serious. Did I stutter? I stared at him, indignation warring with fear. This was absurd. It was demeaning. It was a power trip of epic proportions. "Yes, sir," I said through gritted teeth. "Good boy," he murmured absently, already looking at his screen. The casual endearment, if it was an endearment, sent a shockwave through me. I sat down at my designated desk, my hands shaking as I logged into the system. I hated him. I really, truly hated him. I pulled up the raw data spreadsheets, the numbers swimming before my eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to shove the presence of the man across the room to the back of my mind. I had to focus. I had to prove to him that I was more than just a clumsy, horny junior analyst he could toy with. I was good at my job. I started typing. For 2 hours, the only sounds in the massive room were the clicking of keyboards and Adrian's low voice speaking rapid-fire Mandarin on a conference call. He sounded powerful, ruthless, negotiating deals worth millions without breaking a sweat. It was distracting. It was infuriating. Around 11:30, my bladder began to protest the copious amounts of coffee I'd consumed. I tried to ignore it. I tried to hold it. But after another 20 minutes, it was undeniable. I stopped typing. The silence from my corner of the room seemed to draw his attention. He stopped typing too. I turned in my chair. He was looking at me, one eyebrow raised expectantly. I swallowed my pride. My face burned. "Sir." "Yes, Julian? May I use the restroom?" "Please." Adrian leaned back in his massive leather chair, steepling his fingers under his chin. He took his time answering, his eyes raking over me, assessing my discomfort. "Are you making adequate progress?" he asked calmly. "Yes. I've reformatted the first 2 quarters of marketing data." He considered this. Seconds ticked by. I felt like a child asking to leave the classroom, and the humiliation was a hot coal in my chest. "Very well," he said finally. "Down the hall, second door on the left. Be quick." "Thank you," I muttered, standing up so fast my chair rolled back with a loud clatter. I hurried out of the room, feeling his eyes on my back every step of the way. I found the bathroom, which was all black marble and gold fixtures, nicer than any apartment I'd ever lived in, and locked the door behind me. I leaned against the heavy wood door, breathing hard. I looked at myself in the massive mirror above the sink. My eyes were wide and frantic, my cheeks flushed red. I looked like a wreck. "Pull it together, Julian," I whispered to my reflection. "He's just a man. A rich, arrogant, manipulative man." But as I washed my hands in the marble sink, I couldn't stop the other thought that surfaced, the unwanted truth that had been simmering since last night. He was a man who was slowly, systematically dismantling my defenses. And the terrifying part wasn't that I feared he would ruin me. The terrifying part was that I was starting to look forward to it. I dried my hands on a towel that was softer than my bedsheets and stepped back out into the hallway. The silence of the penthouse was oppressive. As I walked back toward the office, I heard Adrian's voice. He wasn't on a call anymore. The tone was different. Lower. Angry. "I don't care what the board thinks, Marcus. They fear change. I don't pay you to tell me what they fear. I pay you to implement my vision." A pause. "The acquisition goes through on Monday. If there are any leaks, any hesitation, I will burn that department to the ground and start over." Another pause. "Yes. And Marcus? Find out who started the rumor about the internal audit. I want a name by the end of the day." He hung up the phone with a violence that echoed down the hall. I froze outside the office doors. The acquisition. The rumor of an audit. These were massive things, things a junior analyst should never hear. The company was unstable right now. No wonder he was so on edge about the quarterly reports. I took a deep breath and pushed the doors open. Adrian was standing by the window, his back to me. His shoulders were rigid with tension. The air in the room felt charged, like the moments before a lightning strike. I walked quietly back to my desk, hoping to become invisible. "You heard that," Adrian said. It wasn't a question. He didn't turn around. I stopped. "I heard some of it, yes." He turned slowly. His face was a mask of icy rage, but beneath it, I saw something else. Exhaustion, and a fierce, terrifying intensity. "Come here," he commanded. I hesitated. "Julian, come here. Now." I walked toward him, stopping a few feet away. The view behind him was spectacular, the city spread out like a map below us, but I couldn't look away from his eyes. "You know something," he said, stepping closer, invading my personal space until I had to tilt my head back to look at him. "About the audit rumors. You're on the ground floor. You hear the gossip before it reaches the executive suite." My heart pounded. I did know something. Leo had mentioned it days ago, something he heard from a guy in accounting. I might have heard whispers," I admitted cautiously. Adrian reached out, his hand wrapping around the back of my neck. It wasn't a gentle touch like before. It was possessive, commanding. His fingers tangled in the hair at the nape of my neck, pulling me just an inch closer. "Tell me," he demanded, his voice low and rough. "Who is spreading it?" "Adrian, I can't. I don't know for sure. It's just gossip. Tell me." His grip tightened slightly, sending a jolt of electricity down my spine. The threat wasn't about my job anymore. It was physical. It was intimate. "It came from accounting," I whispered, mesmerized by the fury in his eyes. "Someone named Greg. That's all I know, I swear." Adrian stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. He seemed to be weighing my truthfulness, searching my face for any sign of deception. Then slowly, the tension drained from his shoulders. His grip on my neck loosened, turning into a caress. His thumb traced the line of my jaw, a feather-light touch that made my breath hitch. "Good," he murmured, his eyes dropping to my lips again. The anger was gone, replaced by that darkening hunger I had seen last night. "You're useful, Julian. More useful than I thought." He leaned down, his forehead resting against mine. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by his proximity, by the scent of him, by the roller coaster of fear and desire he put me through every time we were in a room together. "Don't make me regret bringing you here," he whispered against my skin. "I won't," I breathed back. "Go back to work." He released me and walked away without a backward glance. I stood there by the window, legs shaking, staring at the city below, realizing I was already in way too deep. And it wasn't even noon on Saturday yet. End of Part 3. Part 4, The Storm. The air in the penthouse had changed. Before, it had been cold, sterile, terrifying. Now it felt charged. Heavy. Like the air before a thunderstorm breaks, thick with electricity and the scent of ozone. After the incident in the hallway, after Adrian had pinned me with his gaze and demanded the name of the rumor monger, we had retreated to our respective corners of the massive office. But the dynamic had shifted. I wasn't just the clumsy junior analyst anymore. I was an accomplice. I had given him a name, Greg from accounting, and in doing so, I had crossed a line. I was on his side now. And God help me, it felt intoxicating. For the next 4 hours, the only sounds were the rhythmic clatter of my keyboard and the occasional deep hum of Adrian's voice as he made calls. I didn't understand most of what he was saying. Legal jargon, acquisition terms, aggressive negotiation tactics, but the tone was unmistakable. He was going to war, and he was winning. By 6 p.m., the sun began to set, painting the massive floor-to-ceiling windows in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange. The city lights flickered on below us, a glittering sea of diamonds that felt a million miles away. My eyes burned. My back ached from hunching over the laptop. But the report was a masterpiece. I had rebuilt the data models, corrected the marketing errors, and streamlined the projections. It was clean. It was perfect. "Done," I whispered, leaning back in my chair and stretching my arms over my head. A satisfying pop echoed in my spine. "Finished." I jumped. I hadn't heard him move. Adrian was standing right behind my chair, holding 2 tumblers of amber liquid. He had shed his sweater hours ago, and was now wearing just a charcoal t-shirt that clung to his chest in ways that made it very hard to concentrate on spreadsheets. "Yes," I managed to say, my voice raspy from disuse. "I just need to run the final pivot tables, but the core data is fixed. The acquisition team won't find a single error." Adrian set one of the glasses on my desk. Drink. I shouldn't. I need to drive home. You don't have a car here, he reminded me, taking a sip of his own drink. And it's pouring rain outside. You're not going anywhere yet. I looked toward the window. Sure enough, heavy rain was lashing against the glass, distorting the city lights into blurry streaks. I had been so focused I hadn't even noticed the weather turn. I reached for the glass. Whiskey. Expensive whiskey. It burned on the way down, settling warm and heavy in my empty stomach. Let me see, Adrian said. He didn't move to the side of the desk. Instead, he leaned over me from behind, placing one hand on the desk surface and the other on the back of my chair. He was boxing me in again. His chest pressed lightly against my shoulder as he leaned in to look at the monitor. I stopped breathing. The scent of him, sandalwood rain, and the faint, musky smell of a man who had been working all day filled my senses. Scroll down, he commanded, his voice rumbling right next to my ear. My hand shook as I reached for the mouse. I scrolled through the summary pages. Stop. I froze. Is something wrong? Adrian leaned closer, his face inches from mine as he scrutinized the numbers. This projection, for Q3. You adjusted the overhead costs. Yes, I said quickly, nervous. The previous analyst didn't account for the new server farm maintenance. It was hidden in the IT subledger. I moved it to operational costs where it belongs. It lowers the net profit by 2%, but it's accurate. If the auditors found it later, they would have flagged it as manipulation. Silence. Adrian stared at the screen for a long, agonizing moment. I braced myself for him to yell, to tell me I had ruined the numbers, to tell me to fix it back. You found the hidden costs in the IT subledger? He asked quietly. Yes, sir. It took a while to dig them out, but... He turned his face. He was so close that his nose brushed against my temple. Brilliant. The word was a whisper, but it hit me like a physical blow. You're brilliant, Julian. He straightened up, finally giving me space to breathe, though I felt colder the moment he moved away. He took a long swallow of his whiskey, looking at me with a new expression. Respect. Greg from accounting didn't just spread rumors, Adrian said, his eyes narrowing. He was the one who prepared the original IT budget. He hid those costs intentionally to inflate the numbers, knowing the audit would catch it and tank the acquisition deal. My jaw dropped. Sabotage. Corporate espionage, Adrian corrected grimly. Someone paid him to tank this deal. And you just saved it. He looked at me, really looked at me, not as a subordinate, but as an equal. You saved me $1 billion today, Julian. I just did my job. No, you did what no one else bothered to do. You paid attention. He walked over to the window, staring out at the storm. Hungry? Yes. A little. Good. Because I'm starving. And since you saved the company, I suppose I can cook for you. I blinked. You cook. He glanced back over his shoulder, a smirk playing on his lips. I live alone, Julian. I don't like strangers in my house. Housekeepers, chefs. I don't trust them. I learned to survive. Watching Adrian Sterling cook was an experience that should have come with a warning label. He moved around the kitchen with lethal efficiency, chopping vegetables with a knife skill that was slightly terrifying. He had rolled up the sleeves of his t-shirt, revealing forearms that flexed with every movement. I sat on a barstool at the kitchen island, nursing my whiskey, unable to look away. This was surreal. The billionaire CEO was making carbonara? It's simple, he said, catching me staring. Eggs, cheese, guanciale, pepper. No cream. If you use cream, you're a heretic. I didn't know you had such strong opinions on pasta, I murmured, feeling the alcohol buzzing pleasantly in my head. I have strong opinions on everything, Julian. You should know that by now. He plated the food and slid a bowl across the counter to me. It smelled heavenly. We ate in silence for a few minutes. It was the best pasta I had ever tasted. Rich, salty, perfect. Why? I asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Adrian looked up, a forkful of pasta halfway to his mouth. Why what? Why do you care so much? About the company. About the acquisition. You have enough money to buy a small country. You could retire tomorrow and never work again. Why stress yourself out? Why deal with people like Greg? Why this? I gestured to the penthouse, the isolation. Adrian set his fork down slowly. He picked up his glass of wine. He had switched to a heavy red and swirled it. Because it's mine, he said, his voice low. My father, he was a gambler. Not with cards, but with business. He built empires and lost them. He left us with nothing when I was 18. I swore I would build something that no one could take away. Something solid. Sterling and Co. isn't just a company, Julian. It's my fortress. It's the proof that I exist and that I matter. He looked at me, his blue eyes vulnerable for the first time. If I lose it, I lose myself. My heart ached for him. Beneath the arrogance, beneath the terrifying exterior, there was just a boy who was afraid of losing everything. You won't lose it, I said softly. The report is perfect. The numbers are solid. You're going to win. Adrian held my gaze. The air between us shifted again, becoming heavier, hotter. Thanks to you, he whispered. He stood up and walked around the island. I stiffened, but I didn't pull away. He stopped right next to my stool, leaning his hip against the counter. He was towering over me again. You're finished with the work, he said. Yes. So technically you're free to go. My heart sank. Right. I should call a cab. In this weather? He gestured to the window. Thunder rattled the glass, a low, ominous growl. You'd be waiting for an hour. And the bridges are probably flooded. Then what do I do? Stay. The word hung in the air. Stay here. I squeaked. I have a guest room, he said quickly, though his eyes told a different story. They were dark, dilated. Or a couch. It's late. You're tired. You've been drinking whiskey. It's irresponsible to send you out there. Adrian, I said, my voice trembling. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because I stood up, needing to put some distance between us, but there was nowhere to go. I was trapped between him and the counter. Because of everything. Because of who you are. Because of who I am. Because of that text. That text, he repeated. He took a step closer, crowding me. We haven't talked about the text since yesterday. We don't need to talk about it. It was a mistake. Was it? He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek. His thumb brushed over my cheekbone, sending sparks through my entire body. You said you wanted to wipe the arrogance off my face, he murmured, his gaze dropping to my mouth. Is it still there, Julian? Am I still too arrogant for you? Yes, I breathed, though my body was betraying me. I leaned into his touch instinctively. You're infuriating. You're controlling. I'm what? You're lonely, I whispered. Adrian flinched as if I had slapped him. His hand dropped from my face. For a second, I thought I had gone too far. I thought he was going to throw me out. But then he laughed. A dry, humorless sound. You see too much, he said. It's dangerous to see that much, Julian. I can't help it. Then stop looking. I can't. He stared at me, a war waging behind his eyes. Restraint versus desire. Logic versus need. Go to the guest room, he said roughly, stepping back. Down the hall. Last door on the right. Lock the door, Julian. What? Lock the door, he repeated, his voice harsh. Because if you don't, I might forget that I'm your boss. And I might forget that you're just a junior analyst who made a mistake. Adrian, go. The command cracked like a whip. I scrambled back, grabbing my bag, and hurried down the hallway. I found the guest room, another pristine, cold room with a massive bed, and shut the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the lock. Click. I leaned my forehead against the heavy wood of the door, breathing hard. I was safe. I was locked in. But as I stood there, listening to the thunder outside and the silence inside, a terrifying realization washed over me. I didn't want to be safe. I stared at the lock. He had told me to lock it to protect me from him. But who was going to protect me from myself? I walked over to the bed and sat down, burying my face in my hands. The image of him in the kitchen, vulnerable, intense, wanting, was burned into my retinas. I lay down, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep was impossible. An hour passed. Then 2. The storm raged on. Around midnight, a soft knock on the door made me jump nearly out of my skin. Julian. His voice was muffled by the wood. It sounded rough. Drunk. Or just desperate. I didn't answer. I held my breath. I know you're awake, he said softly. I walked to the door, my bare feet silent on the plush carpet. I pressed my ear against the wood. Go away, Adrian, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if he could hear me. I can't, he replied. He was right there, leaning against the door on the other side. I can't stop thinking about it. Thinking about what? The text. The part about the window. My breath hitched. Go to sleep, sir. Don't call me sir right now, he growled low. Open the door. You told me to lock it. I changed my mind. You're drunk. I'm sober. Painfully sober. Open the door, Julian. No. Why? Because if I open it, my voice cracked. If I open it, I won't be able to stop you. And I need this job. Silence on the other side. Long, heavy silence. You won't lose your job, Adrian said finally. His voice was stripped of all arrogance. It was just raw honesty. But you might lose your sanity. Because if you open this door, I'm going to do exactly what you asked for. All of it. My hand hovered over the lock. The rational part of my brain was screaming no. It was screaming that this was a disaster, a lawsuit waiting to happen, a heartbreak in the making. But the part of me that had sent that text, the part of me that had watched him cook and work and fight for his legacy, that part was screaming yes. I closed my eyes. I gripped the cold metal of the lock. And I turned it. Click. The sound was louder than the thunder outside. The doorknob turned slowly. The door creaked open. Adrian stood in the hallway. He was barefoot now. His hair was messy, as if he had been running his hands through it for hours. His eyes were dark pools of intent. He didn't say a word. He just stepped into the room, kicking the door shut behind him with a finality that echoed in my bones. He walked toward me, not stopping until he was towering over me, the heat radiating from his body, warming the chill in the room. You unlocked it, he whispered, sounding almost amazed. I did. Last chance, Julian. Tell me to leave. I looked up at him, at the man who terrified me and fascinated me in equal measure. Make me, I challenged softly. Something snapped in his eyes. A tether breaking. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed the front of my shirt, bunching the fabric in his fist, and slammed me back against the wall. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to knock the breath out of me. Finally, he growled. And then his mouth crashed down on mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a collision. It was months of pent-up frustration, anger, and hidden desire exploding all at once. He kissed me like he was drowning, and I was oxygen. His tongue swept into my mouth, claiming me, tasting me, owning me. I gasped, wrapping my arms around his neck, pulling him closer, melting into the hardness of his body. He tasted like whiskey and danger. He pulled back just an inch, his forehead resting against mine, both of us panting for air. You have no idea, he rasped, his voice wrecked, how long I've wanted to do that. Show me, I whispered, echoing the words from my mistaken text. Adrian let out a low, guttural groan. He swept me up into his arms as if I weighed nothing, carrying me toward the bed. Gladly. End of Part 4. Part 5, The Aftermath. Sunlight. Too much sunlight. It streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows with a vengeance, piercing through my eyelids like tiny, brilliant needles. I groaned, trying to turn away, but my body felt heavy. Languid. Different. Then the memories came rushing back. The storm. The whiskey. The lock clicking open. The way Adrian had looked at me, like a starving man finally given a feast. My eyes snapped open. I wasn't in my bed. I wasn't even in the guest room. I was in his room. The master suite. A space so large it had its own zip code, dominated by a massive bed with sheets that felt like spun silk. And I was tangled in them. Naked. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in my chest. I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The space beside me was empty. The pillow still held the indentation of his head, and when I leaned closer, the scent of sandalwood and something distinctly male filled my nose. But Adrian was gone. Oh God, I whispered, the reality of what I had done crashing down on me. I had slept with my boss. My billionaire, arrogant, terrifying boss. The man who held my career in the palm of his hand. And now he was gone. Had he regretted it? Was he downstairs right now, drafting my termination letter? Or worse, pretending it never happened? I scrambled out of bed, my legs wobbly. I found my clothes, the jeans and sweater I had worn yesterday, neatly folded on a chair nearby. My underwear was somewhere. I didn't want to think about where. I pulled on my clothes with shaking hands, feeling like an intruder in this pristine, silent sanctuary. I needed to leave. I needed to escape before I had to face him, before the awkwardness suffocated me. I crept out of the bedroom, my socks sliding silently on the polished concrete floor. The penthouse was quiet. Too quiet. I reached the living area. It was empty. The kitchen was spotless, as if no one had ever cooked carbonara there. Then I saw it. A note on the kitchen island. A single piece of heavy, cream-colored cardstock with his distinct, sharp handwriting. Gone to the office. The acquisition meeting was moved up. Stay here. Wait for me. Don't you dare leave. Hey, don't you dare leave, I read aloud, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Classic Adrian. Even in his absence, he was controlling me. But the A at the bottom, not Sterling. Just A. It felt intimate. Possessive. My stomach rumbled, reminding me that I hadn't eaten since the pasta last night. Next to the note was a covered plate. I lifted the silver dome, because of course he had a silver dome, to reveal a perfectly arranged breakfast, pastries, fruit, and a thermos of coffee. He had made breakfast before leaving to save his billion-dollar company. I sank onto a bar stool, overwhelmed. What was happening? Was this a relationship? Or was I just a convenient distraction before the biggest deal of his life? I ate quickly, the food turning to ash in my mouth as anxiety gnawed at me. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't just sit in his ivory tower while he fought a war I had helped him prepare for. I checked my phone. It was 11 a.m. on Sunday. Wait. The meeting. If the acquisition meeting was moved up, that meant the sabotage I had uncovered, the hidden IT costs, Greg from accounting, was about to blow up in everyone's face. Adrian was walking into a boardroom ambush, armed with the data I had prepared. If I had made a mistake, if I had missed one single calculation, he wouldn't just lose the company. He would be humiliated, destroyed. I needed to be there. Not as his lover, as his analyst. I grabbed my bag, ignored his command to stay, and ran for the elevator. The Sterling and Company building was eerily quiet on a Sunday, but the executive floor was buzzing with a palpable tension. The HVAC repairs were apparently finished, or at least suspended, because the air was freezing. I swiped my badge at the security turnstile. It still worked. Thank God. I took the elevator up, my heart racing. When the doors opened on the top floor, I saw chaos. People in suits were running back and forth with stacks of paper. Lawyers were arguing in hushed tones in corners. And in the center of it all, through the glass walls of the main conference room, was Adrian. He was standing at the head of the massive mahogany table, looking like a king facing a firing squad. He was wearing a different suit today, navy blue, sharp, intimidating. His face was a mask of cold fury. Around the table sat the board members, old, white-haired men and women who looked like they smelled blood in the water. And there, sitting smugly near the end, was Greg from accounting. I walked toward the glass, trying to be inconspicuous, but my eyes were locked on Adrian. He looked tired. There were faint shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. But his posture was rigid, unyielding. The numbers don't add up, Adrian, one of the board members, a man named Marcus, was saying. His voice was amplified by the room's acoustics, audible even through the glass. The due diligence team found discrepancies in the operational costs. The buyers are getting cold feet. They think you're hiding debt. I'm not hiding anything, Adrian said, his voice calm but deadly. The discrepancies are errors in the initial reporting. Errors that have been corrected. Corrected by who? Marcus sneered. You fired the lead analyst last week. Who ran these new numbers? You. My team, Adrian said smoothly. Your team is a ghost town today, Greg piped up, spinning a pen on the table. I reviewed the IT budget myself, sir. The costs are accurate. If the numbers changed, it's because someone manipulated them to make the profit margins look better. Liar. My blood boiled. Greg was lying through his teeth, trying to frame Adrian for cooking the books. Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't look at Greg. He looked at the board. I assure you, the revised report is accurate. The previous data included inflated maintenance costs that were hidden in subledgers. We removed them. Prove it, Marcus challenged. Show us the source data. Show us the trail. Adrian hesitated. He glanced down at his laptop. I knew why. The source data was on the server, but the specific audit trail linking Greg to the subledgers. I hadn't had time to finalize that report. I had focused on the result, not the evidence of the crime. He was cornered. Without thinking, I pushed open the heavy glass door of the conference room. Every head turned toward me. The silence was instant and suffocating. Adrian looked up. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me. A flash of fear? No concern. Then anger. I told you to stay. Who is this? Marcus demanded, looking me up and down with disdain. I'm Julian, I said, my voice shaking but louder than I expected. Junior analyst. I prepared the revised report. You. Greg scoffed. The kid who can't even fetch coffee on time? I ignored him. I walked straight to the head of the table, standing next to Adrian. I could feel the heat radiating off him, the tension in his body. Sir, I said, looking at Adrian. I have the audit trail. Adrian stared at me. You do? Yes. I ran a script last night to trace the origin of the subledger entries. It's on my laptop. I patted my bag. It was a lie. A bluff. I hadn't run a script. But I knew the data was there. I just needed 5 minutes to pull it up. Well, Marcus said impatiently. Let's see it. Give him the HDMI cable, Adrian commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. I plugged my laptop into the projector system. My hands were trembling so badly, I almost dropped the cable. Please work. Please work. I logged in. The screen mirrored onto the massive wall behind us. I navigated to the raw data files. I opened the IT subledger. Here, I said, pointing to a column of numbers. These entries for server maintenance, external vendor. They were entered manually on. I checked the timestamp. October 14th. So, Greg said, sweating slightly now. Routine maintenance. No, I said, gaining confidence. Because if you cross-reference the vendor ID. I quickly opened another window, typing furiously. Vendor 4092 doesn't exist in our approved supplier database. It's a shell company. Gasps ripple around the room. And, I continued, my heart pounding in my throat, the user ID that authorized the payments. I highlighted the cell. User, G. Reynolds. Greg Reynolds. The room went dead silent. I looked at Greg. His face had gone pale, his smug expression replaced by sheer panic. That's a glitch, Greg stammered. Someone used my login. A glitch that funneled $2 million into a fake account. Adrian asked softly. His voice was terrifyingly gentle. He turned to the board. Gentlemen, ladies, it seems we have found the source of the discrepancy. It wasn't incompetence. It was embezzlement. Marcus looked from the screen to Greg, then back to Adrian. His face was purple. Security, he roared. Two guards stepped forward and grabbed Greg by the arms. He was shouting protests as they dragged him out of the room, but no one was listening. Adrian stood tall, buttoning his jacket. Now that we have clarified the situation, I assume the acquisition can proceed? Marcus nodded, looking humbled. Yes, of course. We'll need to review the final numbers, but good work, Adrian. Don't thank me, Adrian said, placing a hand on my shoulder. It was heavy, warm, claiming. Thank my analyst. He looked down at me. For a second, the mask slipped. His eyes burned with something intense, pride, relief, and a hunger that had nothing to do with business. Good job, Julian, he murmured, low enough that only I could hear. Thank you, sir, I whispered back. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. The board members filed out, shaking Adrian's hand, muttering apologies. When the last one left, the door clicked shut. We were alone. Adrian turned to me. The professional facade crumbled. He didn't look like a CEO anymore. He looked like a man who had just survived a car crash. I told you to stay, he said, his voice rough. I know. You disobeyed a direct order. I saved your ass, I countered, adrenaline making me bold. Adrian stared at me. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. It was genuine, breathtaking. You did, he admitted. You absolutely did. That bluff with the shell company. Did you know? I suspected, I said. I checked the vendor list last night while you were sleeping. You were working while I was sleeping. Someone had to. He laughed. He actually laughed. He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides and grabbed my face, kissing me hard. It was a victory kiss. Fierce, joyful, possessive. You are incredible, he murmured against my lips. Brilliant. Infuriating. Incredible. And you're welcome, I said, breathless. He pulled back, his thumb tracing my lower lip. We should celebrate. Celebrate? How? Dinner. A real dinner. Not me cooking pasta in a panic. I'd like that. Good. Tonight. 8 p.m. I'll pick you up. Wait, I said, pulling away slightly. Pick me up from where? Your apartment. Unless you want to move into the penthouse now. My heart skipped a beat. Move in? Adrian, it's been one night. I know what I want, Julian. I told you. I don't do things halfway. Let's stick to dinner for now, I said, laughing nervously. Fine. Dinner. But bring a bag. You're staying over. Is that a command, sir? He smirked, that arrogant, beautiful look back in place. What do you think? That night, dinner was at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. Candlelight, expensive wine, a view of the skyline. It was perfect. We talked. Not about work. Not about the acquisition. We talked about books, movies, his childhood in France, my obsession with vintage sci-fi novels. I learned that he hated olives, loved jazz, and was terrified of spiders. He wasn't the monster I had thought he was. He was just a man. A complicated, driven, lonely man who had found someone who wasn't afraid of him. After dinner, we went back to his penthouse. The night was indescribable. It was slower this time, more deliberate. He took his time learning my body, mapping every inch of skin, every gasp, every shiver. It wasn't just about possession anymore. It was about connection. Lying in his arms afterward, watching the city lights, I felt something I hadn't expected. Happiness. I could get used to this, I murmured sleepily. You will, Adrian said, kissing the top of my head. Because I'm not letting you go. Is that a threat? A promise. I smiled, closing my eyes. Everything was perfect. The villain was defeated, the company was saved, and I was in the arms of the man I loved. Yes, loved. I admitted it to myself then. I loved him. But as I drifted off to sleep, I didn't see Adrian's phone light up on the nightstand. I didn't see the text message that flashed on the screen. Unknown number. You think you won? Greg was just the pawn. Check your email, Mr. Sterling. The game has just begun. And I didn't see Adrian reach out, read the message, and watch the color drain from his face as the perfect night shattered into a million pieces. End of Part 5. Part 6, The Ultimatum. The silence in the penthouse was different this time. It wasn't the peaceful silence of two people sleeping in after a perfect night. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a bomb waiting to detonate. I woke up cold. The space beside me in the massive bed was empty. Again. Adrian. I whispered, my voice thick with sleep. No answer. I sat up, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. The memories of last night, the dinner, the laughter, the incredible intimacy, felt like a fever dream now. The sunlight streaming through the windows seemed harsh, unforgiving. I found him in the living room. He was fully dressed in a suit, black, severe, armored. He was standing by the window, staring out at the city, holding his phone in a grip so tight his knuckles were white. Adrian, I asked, stepping onto the cold concrete floor. What's wrong? Is it the board? Did Marcus call? He didn't turn around. When he spoke, his voice was unrecognizable. Cold. Detached. A stranger's voice. You need to leave, Julian. I froze. What? Get your things. My driver is downstairs. He'll take you back to your apartment. I don't understand. I walked closer, ignoring the warning bells ringing in my head. Last night, you said. Last night was a mistake, he cut in sharply, finally turning to face me. His face was a mask of stone. No emotion. No warmth. Just the terrifying CEO I had met 6 months ago. I let my guard down. I let emotions cloud my judgment. It won't happen again. You're lying, I said, my voice shaking. I know you. I know when you're lying. You're trying to protect me from something. What is it? I'm not trying to protect you, he sneered, though his eyes betrayed him. They looked shattered. I'm trying to protect my company. A relationship with a subordinate, especially after the audit scandal, is a liability I can't afford. You were a distraction. A pleasant one, but a distraction nonetheless. It felt like he had slapped me. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and stinging. You don't mean that. I do. Now get dressed and get out. I stared at him. The man who had cooked for me. The man who had held me like I was the most precious thing in the world. The man who had whispered, I'm not letting you go. He was pushing me away. And he was doing a damn good job of it. But then I saw it. The phone in his hand. The screen was still lit up. I didn't think. I moved. Julian, stop. I grabbed the phone from his hand before he could react. He was so surprised by my audacity that he didn't stop me in time. I looked at the screen. An email. From an anonymous, encrypted address. Subject, checkmate. Attachment. Surveillance_04_12.jpg body. You thought getting rid of Greg would save you? Cute. I have photos of you and your little analyst entering your penthouse last night. I have the security logs. I have witnesses. The deal. Resign as CEO by 9 a.m. Monday. Hand over the controlling shares to the board. If you do, the photos disappear. If you don't, I leak everything. The conflict of interest scandal will destroy the acquisition, tank the stock, and ruin the boy's career before it even starts. He'll never work in this town again. Tick-tock, Mr. Sterling. I lowered the phone, my hands trembling. You're being blackmailed, I whispered. Someone wants you to resign. Adrian snatched the phone back, his mask cracking. I told you to leave. If you leave now, I can deny it. I can say you were just working late. I can save you. Save me. I stepped closer, anger replacing the fear. You think I want to be saved if it means you losing everything you built? You told me this company is your fortress, your proof of existence. It doesn't matter, he shouted, his voice echoing off the glass walls. If they leak this, they'll destroy you, Julian. They'll paint you as a whore who slept his way to a promotion. They'll blacklist you. I can survive a scandal. I have money. You don't. He grabbed my shoulders, his eyes desperate. I can't let them ruin you. I won't. So I'm resigning. No, I said firmly. He blinked. What? No. You are not resigning. And I am not leaving. Julian, you don't understand the stakes. I understand perfectly, I interrupted, pulling away and walking toward the kitchen island where my laptop was still sitting from the day before. Someone, probably Marcus, is trying to coup you. They used Greg to sabotage the numbers, and when that failed, they resorted to this. I opened my laptop. It's 8 a.m. on Sunday. We have 24 hours before their deadline. To do what? It's an encrypted email. We can't trace it. Maybe you can't, I muttered, cracking my knuckles. But before I was a junior analyst, I was a broke college student who couldn't afford textbooks. I learned how to find alternative sources. I know how to track a digital footprint. Adrian stared at me, stunned. You're a hacker? I'm resourceful, I corrected, typing furiously. And I am not letting some old man in a suit take you down because he's jealous. Come here. Adrian hesitated, then walked over to stand behind me. Look at the header metadata. I pointed at the screen. They used a VPN to mask the IP, routing it through Switzerland. Smart, but lazy. Lazy. They sent the email at 7:02 a.m. Do you know what happens at 7 a.m. every Sunday in this building? Adrian shook his head. The server performs a localized backup. It logs every single packet of data that originates from inside the Sterling & Co. network. Even if they used a VPN, the initial request hit our local router first. I accessed the company's admin panel, using the credentials Adrian had given me yesterday for the report. If the email came from someone inside the building, or someone using a company device logged into the secure network, there will be a trace. I ran the query. The screen blurred with lines of code. Adrian's hand rested on my shoulder. His heat was grounding. Julian. Gotcha, I whispered. A single line of text highlighted in red. Source device MAC address. A4:5E, 60. Registered user, Marcus Thorne. Marcus, Adrian growled, the sound low and dangerous. He sent it from his company iPad, probably thinking the VPN would hide him. He didn't know about the localized backup log, I said, sitting back with a satisfied smirk. He's not just a blackmailer, Adrian. He's stupid. Adrian looked at the screen, then at me. The look in his eyes was a mix of awe and something so intense it made my breath hitch. You found him. I found him. We have proof. We have proof. Adrian straightened up. The defeated man from 10 minutes ago was gone. The CEO was back. But this time, he wasn't cold. He was burning. Get dressed, Julian, he commanded, a wicked smile playing on his lips. We have a board meeting to crash. Monday morning, 8:55 a.m. The Sterling & Company boardroom was packed. The air was thick with tension. Marcus sat at the head of the table, Adrian's seat, looking smug. He checked his watch repeatedly. It's nearly time, Marcus announced to the confused board members. Mr. Sterling informed me he would be making an important announcement regarding his tenure. The doors burst open. Adrian strode in. He wasn't wearing the defeated expression Marcus expected. He looked like a god of war in a bespoke Italian suit. And walking right beside him, step for step, was me. Sorry I'm late, Adrian said smoothly, his voice filling the room. Traffic was murder. Marcus paled. He stood up, knocking his chair back. What is he doing here? He pointed a shaking finger at me. This is a closed meeting. Julian is my associate, Adrian said calmly, walking to the head of the table. Marcus didn't move. Adrian just looked at him, that terrifying, frozen stare, until Marcus crumbled and moved to the side. Adrian sat down. I stood to his right, placing my laptop on the table and connecting it to the main screen. I believe you were expecting a resignation, Marcus? Adrian asked, leaning back in his chair. We received disturbing reports, Marcus stammered, looking at the other board members for support. About your conduct. About conflicts of interest. We were told you would be stepping down to avoid a scandal. Ah yes, the scandal. Adrian gestured to the screen. Julian, if you would? I hit enter. The screen didn't show the compromising photos Marcus had threatened to leak. It showed the email, the threat, and right next to it, the server log proving it came from Marcus's device. Gasps erupted around the room. What is this? One of the board members demanded. This, Adrian said, his voice hard as steel, is blackmail. Corporate espionage. And attempted extortion. He stood up, looking down at Marcus, who was now trembling visibly. You tried to force me out, Marcus. You used Greg to sabotage the numbers, and when my analyst fixed them, he nodded at me. You tried to destroy us personally. It's a lie. Marcus shouted, desperate. That boy, he's sleeping with him. It's inappropriate. It is none of your business, Adrian cut him off, his voice thundering. But since you brought it up, Adrian turned to look at me. The whole room held its breath. He reached out and took my hand. In front of the entire board. In front of the world. Julian is my partner, Adrian said clearly. In every sense of the word. And he is also the reason this company wasn't sold for scraps yesterday. He saved this deal. He saved your investments. He turned back to the board. So, here is my ultimatum. Marcus is fired. Immediately. Press charges for extortion. Or, he paused. Or I walk. And if I walk, Julian walks. And if we walk, the acquisition deal collapses, the stock plummets, and this company is dead in the water by noon. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. Then, the oldest board member, a woman named Eleanor, stood up. She looked at Marcus with disgust. Security, she said quietly. For the second time in 2 days, guards entered the room. Marcus didn't scream this time. He just slumped, defeated, as they led him away. When the door closed, Eleanor looked at Adrian, then at our joined hands. The acquisition goes through at noon, she said. Congratulations, Mr. Sterling. And, Mr. Hayes. She sat down. We had won. 2 hours later, we were back in Adrian's office. The real office. The acquisition papers were signed. The stock was soaring. The threat was gone. Adrian closed the door and locked it. He turned to me, leaning against the heavy wood, looking exhausted but exhilarated. We did it, he said. We did, I agreed, feeling the adrenaline finally crash. Though I think I aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. You were perfect. He pushed off the door and walked toward me. You were absolutely perfect. He stopped in front of me, his hands resting on my hips. So, about what I said in the boardroom. About me being your partner? Yes. He searched my eyes. I meant it, Julian. I'm not hiding this anymore. I don't care about the rules. I don't care about the gossip. I want you. Only you. Even if I'm arrogant? I teased. Especially because you're arrogant. You learn from the best. He kissed me then. Soft, sweet, and full of promises. It wasn't a desperate kiss like before. It was a kiss that said I'm here to stay. But, he pulled back slightly, there is one problem. What? You can't be my analyst anymore. My heart dropped. You're firing me? No. I'm promoting you. I can't have my partner fetching coffee. It's undignified. He smirked. VP of Operations. It's open. It's yours. VP. I choked. Adrian, I'm 24. I'm a junior analyst. You're the man who saved the company. You're the man who outsmarted the board. And you're the man who owns the CEO. He kissed my nose. You'll do fine. I'll teach you. I laughed, wrapping my arms around his neck. VP of Operations, does it come with a raise? Significant. And a company car. And, he leaned down to whisper in my ear. Access to the CEO's private elevator. I think I can accept those terms. Good. He picked me up, sitting me on the edge of his massive desk. The very desk I had fantasized about in that first mistaken text. You know, Adrian murmured, his hands wandering. We never did get to finish that conversation about the window. I glanced at the floor-to-ceiling glass behind us. The city of New York lay spread out below, a kingdom we had conquered together. No, I whispered, pulling him closer by his tie. We didn't. Then let's finish it, he growled. Right now. Epilogue, 6 months later. The notification sound cut through the silence of the bedroom. I groaned, rolling over and blindly pawing at the nightstand. Who is texting at 6 a.m.? A heavy arm draped over my waist, pulling me back into the warmth of the duvet. Ignore it, Adrian mumbled into my neck. Probably legal. I can't ignore it. It's my phone. I grabbed the device and squinted at the screen. It was a text from Leo. Leo, dude. Just saw the Forbes article. The power couple revitalizing tech. You look hot. Sterling looks obsessed. Are you guys ever going to stop being disgusting? I laughed. Me never. Jealous? Leo, a little. Also, can you get me a job? I put the phone down, smiling. What is it? Adrian asked, propping himself up on one elbow. His hair was messy, his eyes sleepy and soft. He looked nothing like the terrifying CEO of 6 months ago. He looked like home. Just Leo. He says we're disgusting. He's right. Adrian kissed my shoulder. Disgustingly happy. Are we? I asked, turning to face him. I am, he said seriously. I have my company. I have my empire. He brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. And I have the one thing that actually matters. The coffee machine? You idiot. He kissed me, and as the sun rose over the city, filling our room with golden light, I realized that the best mistake I ever made wasn't just a wrong number. It was the beginning of everything. I love you, Julian. I love you too, Adrian. Now, he smirked, rolling on top of me. Put the phone away. The CEO requires your immediate attention. Yes, sir, I whispered. And for once, I didn't mind taking orders at all. The end.